Hello and welcome to the OTTAVA Tower video. I'm going to have some interesting views into the software at the end of this, so stick around for it. What we're going to talk about today is we are going to talk about the OTTAVA Tower. And as I've said for a long time, I think towers are going to be one of the most important things in surgical robotics of the future. And this will have no doubt for Da Vinci 5, which is the leader in the towers at the minute. You have Hugo, which will be using their tower. And then you've got OTTAVA, which has their tower. Three essential parts to the system. You basically have the console where the surgeon sits, you have the bed, which is where the action happens, and you have the tower, which is the brains of the system and the central nervous system for OTTAVA. And I do apologize to the marketing department. I thought that you'd done some kind of weird photoshopping here. It's just weird light, but I'll come to that in a second. So let's start at the top of the tower and work our way down. I do apologize, this is not super high res. It's all I can find in public domain, but I do have some other screenshots of this. So what you have at the top of this, you have a touch screen with a handle that you can move around, you can raise up and down, you can tilt, you can turn. Then what we have is we have a space here for the insufflator, and they have no integrated insufflator on this tower at the minute, so it's not like a Da Vinci 5 that has its own high flow, low pressure insufflator on here, or smoke clearance insufflator. So you can put anything in there, and a lot of people will of course put something like a ConMed air seal in there for sure. Then here's the interesting piece, which I think is really about them getting across the line with a de novo. So they've put in there a Megadyne generator, which is their monopolar bipolar generator that goes in there. But what they've also got in there is a Gen 11 from the looks of it, which has on there their harmonic scalpel advanced energy and has their N-seal advanced energy. Harmonic scalpel being the ultrasonic vibration energy that seals, and you have N-seal that's on there, which is their bipolar advanced energy sealing device. So you have all the modalities that you need on this tower, but it's not in a very elegant package. And I predicted, go and look at my blog, that Dualto would come on here, and my high suspicion is that when they come out with this in a fully commercial version, what do I mean? They're going to come out with this version which gets across the de novo. You get across the line bleeding and just get yourself across and make sure that you get a clearance by the FDA, because there's no predicate when you've got a de novo. Once you've got your own system on the market and it's cleared, you become your own predicate. So if I want to add a Dualto to here, I use my own predicate of OTTAVA, and it's a 510K to add the Dualto on here. And I guarantee in my heart, I just know that they are going to put that gorgeous Dualto on here, which is a much better system. And just from the software, looking at it, and I'll show you some software shots in a minute, there is no doubt that the design cues and the Dualto will go on here. Wise decision. Don't try and boil the ocean. Don't try and get all new things on there at once. Don't try and get Dualto and the OTTAVA across the line, and your advanced energy and your stapling. Get across and then do rapid 510Ks afterwards to get procedures, features, and things like Dualto on there later. Coming down the system, next you have their camera system, which looks like a custom camera system, and there's a light cable, which looks like there, and there's a camera cable, and they come into a Y connector, and I thought this had been photoshopped out, but I was wrong on that. And then that goes up to the camera. I will cover the camera when I do instruments and camera system. I will cover that in detail, but I think it's an HD 0 degree on this one probably for today, but there will probably and most likely be a 30 degree, which you can flip up and down, because you have a drive pack on the camera system, which I'll show you when I do the instruments. So make sure you like and subscribe, and as soon as the instruments drop, you'll get that with the camera system as well. But this is where you get your light source and your camera feed from. Doesn't look like it's ICG at the minute, and again, I imagine they'll get ICG in the future. You would probably just want to get across the line for now and make sure that you've got at least imaging on there. Then what you've got down here is the main compute power, and this is very common for things like Hinatori or Medtronic. You've got a lot of the compute power sits down here. You've got a system on-off button, and you've got a pause and sleep button, which is pause and resume button, and it's mobile, and it's a fairly small footprint. So that's the architecture of the tower, and I will try and show you a little bit now of the software. Okay, I wanted to show you here. So again, I think what's important to know is how the tower fits into everything. And this is for all robots, by the way. This is not just for them. Basically, what you have is you have comms systems and power cables coming from the console to the tower, and from the tower to the bed. So this is how you basically link from the surgeon console that does the teleoperation, comes in here, the processing power for the forwards and backwards kinematics, sends those signals to the bed and moves the arms. Now, what I have learned is that this whole system takes about 4.4 kilowatts of power for the whole system. You need 3 separate plugs to go in, very common for robot systems with 3 components, but you need 3 separate plugs. So the bed and the arms plug into one circuit breaker, and the console into another circuit breaker, and the tower into another. That's what I understand, and that would follow standard operating power setups for a lot of the robots. It takes about 4.4 kilowatts is what I can understand from one of the old manuals. You then also need a separate circuit breaker for the electrosurgery, and that's very common as well, that you put electrosurgery onto a separate circuit within the operating room to make sure you don't get interference from it. Basically, I think from a size, it's nice. You can see the arm here where it allows tilt. Let me see if I can zoom in anymore. It allows tilt from here, and then you can swing this out like an angle poised lamp to be able to put this on this side or this side. It's a 2D screen, and clearly it's a touch screen. Let's go and dig into the touchscreen a little bit. So what you'll get on the touchscreen is you'll be able to put on here a scope view, but it also has a lot of guided setups, and I think this is one of the things that they've been promoting quite heavily, and I think it would have been novel back in 2023. This is now sort of standard fare in many of the systems that are out lately. The Da Vinci 5 definitely has this. You can select the region of the body where you're going to operate: upper, lower, right quadrant, right lateral, left lateral. You've got the number of robotic arms that you want to use, so it will bring just the number of arms in to use it, and sometimes you use a 3-arm, which is a scope 2 instruments, or a 4-arm scope 3 instruments. Then you can set it up for the procedure, and I guess this is where they've done a lot of work inside the company and in the labs to make sure that the arms come in more or less the right position, and then you'll basically select the pose, which will be upper and lower. Now, I don't know if they did actually implement the trocar, which I'll show you a little bit later, but the trocar setup, where they were actually also indicating where the trocars go, but I don't know if they did or didn't do that. Clearly, there's some settings in here. There's a sound in here, and you can skip to the scope view. And I do want to talk a little bit about the software that's in here. So there's a whole software in the system. There's a software that will all be connected. You have a degree of software in the table remote control, and I'll show you a few screenshots of that. You have the software that the surgeon console has that's in the heads-up display and on the little pad sensor that's down in the fingertips. And then what you also have then is the software, and it's all connected, that's on the screen which is for the setup for the bedside team to set this up and do different things within this. My understanding is that there is a phone slot on the console. I've learned that since then, and that you can have a fingerprint sensor in there so that you can log in with a fingerprint, and that will set up your favorite software settings, including I'll show you some of the camera setups. What I do want to zoom in here and show that they've got an extra screen in here. If that's on a foot pedestal, that will take up space, so we just got to be honest about that and say that you could end up taking up space. A lot of these will come on pendants that hang from the ceiling, but what you can see here is that the user is in a setup mode using this screen, while the bedside are looking at another screen. So I think you can use this as your secondary screen as well, and I think that will be important in ASCs because you're able to put the surgeon view on here. But you can see here that you do end up with the spaghetti coming down here. So this is the light source, this is the camera view, and this is the electrosurgery cables. Not always brilliant to put the electrosurgery cables so close and wrap round the camera source, so I hope it's well isolated, and you'll have your monopolar and your bipolars coming off there. This is a thing that I want to zoom in and show you here. So this is the view on the screen, and this is what the surgeon is seeing as their heads-up display, which will have the arms, where you can see the, you can't really see on here very well, but you've got the patient and you've got the arms which are active, the arms that are in there, and how far in the instruments are inside. I don't have pictures of that, so I think that's a newer edition than the screenshots I've got from an older manual. Then what you've got is the central sort of where it really happens, which is where you've got the active arms, so your left arm, right arm is from the console, and your center arm, which is the scope view, and I'll show you some screenshots of that in detail in a minute. And then you've got your fourth arm, which can be dragged either to your left arm or to your right arm as and when you need. But this is what is going to be the main part of the display, and I'll show you that in some details right now. Older software, older screenshots, so I do apologize, it's all I've got access to in the public domain. But what's nice here is you've got a very clear open view, and there's not a lot of clutter in here, so that you're not, you're not crowding your main view with a lot of icons. It's quite tidily done. And again, as I said in my old Dualto video, I am really convinced that the software, the UX team have done a really good job of making sure that everything looks modern, clean, iPhone-ish, and the DV5 very much is like this as well. So again, quite a small footprint, size of a normal tower, but I think what it's missing is an insufflator. I think it's missing the Dualto, and it's probably missing at the minute the ICG with white light. Yep. There's one little thing, there's a halo around that, and I think that's the speaker. So you have speakers in the base of the console, up at the top of the console, and it looks like in the tower you've got a speaker there. And again, I think that'll be used for sounds from the systems, the sounds, the beeps and things that you get with the system for the setup. But I think it will also potentially be used for if you're doing telepromptering or something like that. I think you'll be able to use that for telepromptering. So it's got a speaker system that's in there with a nice little halo, and they've done a good job of the halos, and I can show you maybe a little bit what all the halos mean in the software. So you can see here in this setup here, they've got the tower is on and active, and there is what looks to me like something like a ComMed air seal insufflator up there at the top. So that would be how it would be used in surgery, because you're not going to bring in another tower with another insufflator and another screen, otherwise it just defeats the whole point of having a smaller footprint. Okay, and you can see here it is a really nice, clear, high-res screen, and as I showed you before, and it's all touch screen, and it looks like it's fast and responsive on the software, which is really nice. And then I'll take you into some of the software features, and again, I do apologize, I've only got older shots of the software, and I can't guarantee that that's what actually made it onto the final system, so that is my disclaimer. Nice bright image, by the way, and I will come to that when I do talk about the camera. I will talk about it. It is quite a good, nice, bright, high-def image. Oh, there's part of the software. Again, this is down on the surgeon console, and when you look down, you can assign instruments to your left and right hand, and then inside the console, you'll see that that switch happens. And I'll show you some of the features, the software features as promised. Oh, and by the way, do like and subscribe, please, because that is really important. And please like the video and comment as well. That helps it a lot. Right, so here we have the inside view. So this is the formal view that you end up getting. Right, important things on this software that you see here. First of all, you can see top left-hand corner, there is a record feature. So they're obviously able to record either to the cloud or directly in. That is very nice. This bar here is a great little bar. What it means is that the instrument number 1, which is the dual force bipolar, what they call version 2, is off. The actual instrument is a bit off to the left and up. So this is an instrument indicator of coming off the screen. Down here on the bottom left, which is there, you have the instrument arm where it is in relation to the patient, where the camera arm is in relation to the patient, which is arm number 2. Arm number 3 is on the right, and they're both blue because they're actively selected. And number 4, which corresponds down here, which I'll show you in a minute, is basically the arm that's not being used, which is the inactive arm. Keynote in the software, in the warnings, you have to remove that non-active arm if you want to do table motion. You cannot, under the warnings that I've seen, activate the table motion. You have to have both arms of the instruments under active control, and that makes sense to me now. What that means is that basically if you are doing the movement of the table motion and something was to slip, you as a surgeon could move the arms out of the way, which I think is important. And then what I want to come down to here is the main nubbins of it, which is the left and right arm. So left arm is controlling arm number 1, your left haptic controller. Your right haptic controller is controlling number 3, and you have a blue halo around this when it says that you're active. When you go inactive, that goes grey. Now, what's interesting on the dual force bipolar here is that you have normal grip, and then you have a much more higher powered grip. That's a great thing because that means it is an advanced instrument. It becomes standard now. Most of the robots now have dual force for their different graspers and for their bipolars. And the central piece, which is this ring here, is the scope arm. So scope is on arm number 2, and you can see that what they're doing here, you can see that there's a horizon gauge, and the horizon is tilted off to the right, which is showing that they are tilted off to the right, and it's showing on this piece of software a 30-degree scope. So that obviously is 0 degree, 30 degree, and it's in the down position. And I imagine that you can very simply, just by twisting your arms, putting it into camera, so you basically put the camera pedal down, twist your arms, and the thing will twist around, and you'll be able to get a 30-degree up. And I imagine that as they twist that round, because it's chip on tip, and I'll talk about the camera in detail, it basically will do a diagonal flip of the screen, so that the image then shows what you're seeing from up. That's all done in software. So that's it. Very nice, very clean heads-up display. Great job by the software team. And again, it does have all that Dualto stuff that was in there that I saw about. Same colors, same halos. Yeah, very, very nice. And I can show you some details of that in a minute. I am not super stoked about the way that they've done the teleprompting and the telestration and things. Again, I do want to give them full credit. You want to get, this is a difficult system to get across the line. They had to get it across the line with the de novo. And what you don't want to do is try and have too many features. So they also tried to incorporate into the system polyphonic at the same time that they were trying to also get the thing across the line. That is bloody hard, and that would be a really big problem for them. If one of those things didn't work, you lose the whole de novo. Get the de novo across with the most basic system that you can, that's a minimal viable product. Get that across the line, get it out into some users' hands, do more clinical studies with it, do more IDEs with it, and then 510K, get procedures, get features, add polyphonic in later, upgrade your tower later, upgrade everything later, but just get across the line. Oh, one other thing I did find out from the console was that these two pedals here, I thought one was on, one was off. It's not. So you click one and it will lock all the wheels. You click another and it will click just some of the wheels. And what that means is that you can lock some of the wheels in place so that it doesn't move and translate around the room, but what it'll do is it'll rotate so you can get the right angle in the operating room. Quite a nice little feature. So yeah, nice view of the console. And what I'm seeing in here as well is it looks like, I can't tell if these are cooling fans that are inside it or whether they are speakers, even bigger speakers. Maybe speakers, maybe cooling fans. Looks like it could be cooling fans. This is going to have a lot of air flowing through it because there's going to be a lot of compute power going on in there. I'm sure it's full of NVIDIA bits and bobs. And it does look a nice tower. You know, the system looks nice, and it's got good casters on it so that you're going to be able to move that around quite well. Yeah, elegant tower. Very, very good job, team. Let me jump into some things on the software. So this is some of the older software that's in here. And again, it's the heads-up displays. Right, this is just what I wanted to show you, was the heads-up display, so that you have, you know, this is probably a slightly older version of it, but again, this is just what I was saying before, where you have left arm, right arm, you have your functions of your instrument on there, you have your scope here, and this is 0 degree being in flat on arm 2, and then your spare there. I think what they've done is, I think they've removed one of these because it was probably excessive to have 2 on there. And then what they have is that you can, as you load your instruments in, you get a little loading thing as you click them on, and it assigns. So obviously the system talks to the instrument to make sure how many lives, etc., etc. When you're disengaged, you basically have it gray. When you engage and you click in, or you double click in to get engaged, you get a blue halo around there. And it also shows you that you've got the cut coag features. So that's on the right pedals. You would have a cut pedal and a coag pedal, and then you have obviously a bipolar on the left hand side. You'll have the ability to finger clutch as well, so that if you press the right finger clutch, you'll see that you come out of status, and therefore you can move your hand. If you hit the left clutch, and that shows me absolutely conclusively that if they did do that, what you were able to do is you get this nice little symbol about clutch, so therefore you can move your arms and reset your arm, and it means you've got individual arm clutching, which is nice, or you can do both. I don't know what this match grip is. I couldn't work out the match grip, but I'm sure I'll come to that in the future. When you press your camera clutch button, you clearly disengage your 2 instruments, and you engage the camera, and you drive it like a car. You basically drive it like a steering wheel, and you see that the halo lights up around that. Here's one of the interesting things, which is right hover status. So when you put your foot over, you get a status that basically says my foot's over the pedal, but I've not engaged the pedal. Same as Hinatori. I saw that in Hinatori. I really liked it. and they've put this in here as well. When you activate the system, you get a full light up that you're cutting. It's very hard not to see that you're cutting on your right hand there, and it's very hard to see you're not doing bipolar on your left hand there. Within the software as well, there'll be all different kinds of LEDs. They've got some beautiful halo LEDs on the different arms, and each different thing will tell you if the color changes. It will either be a solid color or a flashing color, very standard in robotics, and basically you will have either unavailable, nominal behavior, active state, successful task completion, a major or minor fault, and a critical fault. And nobody wants to see red faults on anything. And then it'll either be solid, it'll be intermittent pulsing, or it'll be blinking. And each of these things, you can go and look at this yourself. You can go, it will tell you what they're doing. And again, just to say, this is an older manual which was used obviously clearly for the clinical trial or for preparation for the clinical trial. It is available publicly, and you can go and find it, and it will tell you all about that. This is probably older software, but I think what you can do in this, you can have the surgeon view of what's on the console and what they're seeing, and then all the different robotic status views. And I think this is quite nice, being able to see the status of this. You do get that on Hinatori as well, by the way, but I think this is nice. And you see this is older software because it's not got on here the arm status that I saw before, and you can see faults and everything on here. You can see that the software runs all the way through from the console to the screen, and interestingly, I think I can show it here. Yes, the little LED display that is underneath the surgeon in the console, where you can hand assign, you can do all kinds of things. You can set a lot of different things in there, by the way. So you can do manual hand assignment, and you can set things like the audio in there, or you can set the different instrument scaling. So it's interesting, they've got scaling. You can turn the finger clutch on and off in the software. And again, I can't guarantee this came through to the final version, but you can actually change it into a 2D display and decide your left or right eye. And then you can change the endoscope settings in there as well. So you can say which scope type it is, and basic things like temperature, tint, saturation. And I imagine that what they've done in there as well is they've probably made this so that each user can then store that and save that within their system. And it's got first name, last name, and yeah, I think that this will be in there. Right, now, here's another interesting thing. What they do have is one more thing, which is the table remote, and I'm not going to go into this in detail. You can go and look at the manual all that you want, but basically you're able to, on the remote of the table, which is where a lot of the action happens, you can do all the table settings in here, the Trendelenburg. And again, this is what I found interesting, that I was asked the question, can you put it into different settings with the arms under? I don't know if this is with the arms under, but it seems to be that you can put this into more or less any of the positions that Mackay bed would normally go into, and you can change all the height and everything. And there was something else I wanted to show you in here just quickly. Yeah, so you can control the arms from here. So the drape positioning, the preparation positioning, the procedure, and the stow positioning. And you can select each individual arm. You can control each individual arm to bring it up and down from the bedside. So the bedside staff can do it from the table, from the tower. They can set this up, or from the actual arms themselves if they're in that position. And again, it just gives you little indicators. So I just wanted to show you that's kind of the software that's in there. So come back out again, show you our glamour shots as I finish up. So in summary, you basically have the tower, you have the bed, and you have the console. Are the three parts. Tower is the brains of it. I think they've got the tower across the line at the minute in a way that they get the know, get it across, and then they're going to upgrade that tower and probably the software. And I think from when they did the 2023 software that was dropped into the trials, I think the software has been updated a little bit since then. I like it. I think it's elegant. I think it's nice. I think it looks modern. It looks fresh. It looks like how it should be. I think since that 2023, there's been a few changes with things like Hinatori and with the Da Vinci 5, which have caught up or gone ahead. But I think this is good standard fare. I think it's a good standard tower. This is what they need to go forwards. They need the Dualto on there. They need a high flow, low pressure insufflator on there. And of course, they're going to need to be able to have that tower allow them to do telesurgery, which I'm almost sure they will do. So that is it for now. Please like, subscribe, comment. Helps me. Hit the bell, and I hope that's been useful, and instruments will be coming soon.